much more Herculean task for the president, because in the state, the provision is that a governor must have a he must have the highest highest vote cast in an election, but not just that, he must also score 25% in at least 2/3 of the local government areas in the state. So if you now say that the FCT is a governor, you are going to be creating an equivalent of that kind of provision, meaning that the president must win the FCT, not just score 25%, but must win the FCT, and also have not less than 25% in 2/3 majority of the area councils. So it even creates a conundrum. It creates a problem, a much bigger benchmark. All right, it's a much bigger, higher benchmark. So this is what we're talking about. This thing stands to very clear reason. The Constitution does not leave anything to chance. It makes it very, very clear. The FCT has a right to have 25% stake in their governor, who is the president. And so with that, this in itself, it's already it's clear enough. President or no president, the issue is already clearly defined by the Constitution. That is it.
Now, you're seeking to have the court, to get an order from the court stopping the inauguration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Many have argued that if this happens, if there's no inauguration by May 29, it's going to leave a vacuum. And in governance, they say there's no vacuum in a democracy like this, and that's. Some people, some bad elements may seize this opportunity to usurp or overturn our democracy. What do you make of that argument of creating a vacuum? Because if that's what you're arguing, it means that either President Buhari would stay in power and stay in office beyond May 29, which is a date that has been set to be sacrosanct for transition. If that doesn't happen, then it would mean that Nigeria would be without a precedent. What do you say? I know that some parts of the Constitution have made provisions for in the situation where the president is incapacitated, who takes over and all of that. But in this case, the president is hale and hearty. He has done his term complete, and he needs to leave.
Let me ask you a question. Supposing, for some reason, Nigeria is in the middle of a war, and May 29, 2023 comes. What happens? What's supposed to happen?
We can't have an election. We didn't have an election. We wouldn't be able to have an election, and that would mean that. But in this case, we've had an election.
We've had an election without a clear winner. And there's provision in the law for what to happen in a situation where there is no clear winner. There are preconditions to being declared a winner in this constitution. One of the preconditions which we are really taking on this case is not having secured 25% vote by the person that INEC has erroneously declared the winner of the constitution. The election, rather. The constitution is over and above everybody. You see, the rulers are not to rule by their will, whims, caprices. They're supposed to rule by the law. It is not the rule of Muhammad Buhari. It is Muhammad Buhari enforcing, ruling by the law, the 1999 Constitution. He's not over and above the law. He's subject to the law, the same way you are and I am and everybody who resides here are subject to that law. So, there is no vacuum if the Constitution has said in section 135 that if for any reason May 29 comes, the 4-year term has lapsed, and there are reasons that a new government cannot be constituted, the president can stay on for 6 months and ensure that whatever needs to be done is done so he can transition seamlessly. What is this rush about that is raping our democracy?
Let me come in. Let me come in there.
All right. You may want to adjust so that the camera guys are you're back in the camera, so just maybe adjust this way it's all, so that we can see your face.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. He mentioned Section 135 of the Constitution. That is actually the section that defines the tenure of the president of the nation. And if you read subsection 1 of that section, it says, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, a person shall hold the office of president until, please mark the word until, when a successor in office takes the oath of that office. It does not say May 29th. It does not even say 4 years. It says until. That means everything that happens in any election is going to be subjected to the legitimacy test. And until it passes that test, the president remains in office until a successor in office takes the oath of office, and then or he resigns or something else. Now, in subsection 2, it says, subject to the provisions of subsection 1 of this section, the president shall vacate his office at the expiration of a period of 4 years, commencing from the date when, and then he defines that. Now, that would make you understand that the 4-year tenure is not sacrosanct by the Constitution. It is subjected to subsection 1, which says that the president remains in office until a successor takes the oath of office. It means there must be legitimacy. And you see, if you look at section 134, it talks very extensively about the process of getting a successor. And in fact, it anticipates where one person is contesting, when there's only one candidate, where there are 2 candidates, and when there are multiple candidates. It talks about election, and then a second election, and then a third election. Now, after all of these processes have been concluded and a true constitutionally deemed successor has been elected, then that is when the tenure of office of the president lapses. The president of Nigeria, by our constitution, can remain there for as long as it takes to get a legitimate successor. That is what the constitution says. It does not say that the Buhari must have to quit. Now, it says he must remain. It is actually his duty. It is his duty. It is his responsibility to hold the power so that there is no vacuum in power and there is no threat to national security until he leaves that place. It is his job. All right? That's what he took the oath of office for. So there is no constitutional crisis that will result from not swearing in anybody at this time. So it is more important that legitimacy be established than for us to rush and do an unconstitutional thing which will establish a government that is illegitimate, because that government will be a threat to Nigeria and the constitution. And anybody who tries to remove that government will now be legitimate, because the government is illegitimate. That's how it happens. So it is a problem and it has to be solved.
There's something you just said now, that if you install an illegitimate government, it makes it legitimate for someone else, a usurper, to come in and legitimize,
yes,
to
remove, yes, because he is trying to restore constitutional order, and constitution is greater than the president or any government.
There's this conversation about, national unity and national security.
Yes.
You just also brought that up, that where you talk about when we talk about national security superseding. Even the president at some point alluded to the fact that human rights can be subservient to national security when there's issues of national security. This is we're at a very critical moment in our nation's life, and we have to be very careful how we handle these things. May 29, since 1999, has always been the day that transition happens. Do we want to change the convention? do we really want to change the convention at this point? Would it be right for us to change convention? Now, looking at it, in just recently, the Supreme Court ruled in the Osun State, governorship case with Oyetola and Adeleke, Governor Adeleke.
Yes.
Governor Adeleke had taken office. The case went through the petitions, the election petitions tribunal, went up to the Court of Appeal, and then the Supreme Court before the final verdict was given.
Yes.
Governor Adeleke had been in office. So why do we want to change this now if at state levels and subnational levels, we've always had, whoever take over office until the court says otherwise?
Well,
all right.
Let's go a little bit jurisprudential here, right? The law is made for man, not man for the law. May 29, yes, has been the precedent for swearing in. But if sticking with this May 29 is going to be is going to constitute obvious injustice, is going to create disaffection in the minds of a majority of the people in the country. Should we rather not have June 1st than May 29? Then again, we're talking about law. We should not, because we do not want to keep with the date of May 29, allow people to start enthroning impunity. The president, if he knows, would want to leave on May 29, ought to do everything to ensure that the proper thing is done. Apparently, we have a lacuna in our legislation. We have the highest paid legislators in the world.
The 2020.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
We have the highest paid body of lawmakers on the face of this earth. And they do not seem to be on top of their game. If May 29 is supposed to be sacrosanct, one would have thought that a proactive legislative body, they're always amending the constitution and tinkering with it, would have ensured that they put a provision in the law that says, okay, elections are supposed to be held at least 60 days to May 29, for instance, and the judicial processes at the election tribunals ought to be completed within XYZ number of days. We have had senior advocates, well-respected ones at that, come up to say, this petition can be dispensed with in a question of 5 days, 14 days, 21 days, and yes, it is true, and yes, it is possible. But why has the judiciary been dilly-dallying about this petition up till this point? And as legal practitioners, we are miffed, we are flummoxed that this crucial week leading to election, there's hardly any court that has sat in the FCT. And you are left to wonder why, in the face of myriads of litigations, of decisions that needed to be made, are they scared to make to reach a decision one way or the other?
I understand your case was supposed to come up in court yesterday for ruling, and that didn't happen.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Let me come in there. All right. Well, the official reason that the court did not sit yesterday was that there's been a week-long conference of judges and justices, and the judge has actually not sat throughout the week. That is the official position, and we can only stick to that. We only understand it that way. Now, I want to just make a bit of a comment on your earlier question, because you brought in Adeleke. Adeleke is the representation of a class. It's not just an individual, and he represents all the governors and the president who have been sworn in while a case, a challenge, is still pending in the tribunal against their supposed victory. Some of them did not succeed at the tribunal, like Ngige. He was removed. And it has happened in several instances.
In Rivers State.
Yes, you see, so it looks,
in Edo State.
It looks like that has become the convention, and it means that whether a person is sworn into office or not, by the time the tribunals come to the end of their sitting and judgment is delivered, he will either leave or stay on. That is what has been the convention all the while. But you see, convention holds no bite force where the Constitution is concerned. And every convention must be tailored and aligned with the Constitution. Else, it is an anachronism and it must be removed. Now, if you read Section 134, Sub 2 of the Constitution, it says, a candidate for an election to the office of president shall be deemed to have been duly elected, where there being more than 2 candidates for the election, he has the highest number of votes cast at the election, and he has not less than 1/4 of the vote cast at the election in each of at least 2/3 of all the states in the federation and the federal capital territory, Abuja. Now, you see, if you understand how legislations are couched, you will know that there are very strong words that are used sometimes in legislation, and they have important meanings in law. All right. Now, the word deemed there actually is the pivot around which this particular provision rests. Deemed. What does it mean? It means that this provision is creating a number of boxes which must be ticked by that candidate in order for him to be declared a winner by presumption of the Constitution. Deemed means presumed. All right? That means there is a benchmark below which a person cannot be deemed to have been elected. That means if he does not meet that benchmark, the next thing to do is not to declare a winner. It is to declare a runoff election, another election. All right? And what are the boxes? Number 1, he must have the highest number of votes among all the candidates. Number 2, he must have at least 25% in 2/3 of the states of the federation. And number 3, he must have at least 25% in the FCT. All right? Now, if he ticks all these boxes, whether anybody is alleging malpractice, irregularities, non-qualification, or any of the other issues that under which he can challenge such election under the Electoral Act, the Constitution assumes or presumes that this person should be the president-elect. And to that extent, he can be sworn in.
Hold that thoughts there. The conversation continues. This is your radio experience. You can count on. We'll be talking more. We're talking with Ohi Onigbe as well as Jeffrey Uche, Esquire, both lawyers and legal practitioners who have taken to the courts to challenge to seek in the courts to stop or grant an order stopping the inauguration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president May 29. Stick with us. The conversation continues.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja. The 2023 WAEC May-June results analysis for Stella Maris College Abuja based on distinctions are as follows. Parallel distinction 90, 8 distinction and above 50, 7 distinction and above 43, 6 distinction and above 38, 5 distinction and above 14, 4 distinction and above 3, 3 distinction and above 3, total 170. So why not choose Stella Maris College Abuja today? The dates for entrance entrance exams are 24th June and 12th August 2023 respectively. Stella Maris College is at Area 1 and Wumba for day college, while boarding college is at Life Camp Abuja. For more enquiries, call 0809 037 3727 or 0817 204 7070 or check us online www.smsabuja.com.
The 2023 Children's Day celebration is here. The Eagles FM Children Parliament is a one-day program where kids and teens will be discussing national issues live on radio, YouTube, and Facebook on the 27th of May at 10 a.m. For advert placements, please call 081 13380604. 081 13380604. The Eagles FM Children's Parliament, contributing to national development. Supported by Ambassador G.Y. Gotham, PDP senatorial candidate for Plateau Central.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Thank you for sticking with us on your radio experience. You can count on. I've been speaking with Ohi Onigbe Esquire and Jeffrey Oche Esquire, who have brought up a case in court on their behalf and on behalf of Abuja residents, to asking the court to stop the inauguration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president, because on the grounds that he did not get 25% of votes in the FCT. You can join the conversation. We'll bring you in shortly if we have the time. It seems like the time has just left us here. So let's quickly talk about what else you're doing to see that this happens. If you're as it is now, the courts, like you've mentioned, are on holiday somewhat. What's going to happen today is the 25th. May 29 is just around the corner. We get into the weekend from tomorrow. What is it that what are you doing, or what would you do if you can't get through to the courts?
I have written already as a plaintiff in this matter. I've already written a letter to the CJN directing his attention to the fact that there is a challenge pending in a court in which he is a defendant. And the challenge is against the inauguration of the president-elect, in quote, who we believe very strongly is not constitutionally recognized or legitimate. And as long as a matter is sub judice in this form, no party is allowed by the rule of law to step or carry out anything which is going to end up jeopardizing or prejudicing the court in its final determination. That means they cannot destroy the subject matter. The subject matter of this suit is the inauguration. And if the inauguration is done, it means that the suit has been destroyed. The suit no more holds bite. And you see, this is a very important thing because the CJN is the highest law officer in Nigeria. He is the compendium and the representation of legality of the Constitution. He is the chief defendant by interpretation of the Constitution. Therefore, the moment he takes any step which is going to jeopardize a pending case in a court that is so important to national security, he is actually establishing a precedence of unconstitutionality, of impunity, and a precedence of people ignoring and disdaining the court.
Did you get a response from the CJN?
I have not gotten a response from him yet. It was just yesterday the letter was submitted to him. Yes, just yesterday. But as far as tomorrow is concerned, even though it's been declared a public holiday, the courts actually have the power to sit on a public holiday. So we cannot be sure yet if the court is going to go ahead and sit or not. We will appear in court tomorrow, and if the Honorable Justice decides not to sit on a public holiday, that is only when we will now be concerned with the question of what happened. The natural thing that should happen according to the rule of law is that the CJN cannot leave his chambers and enter into any place to swear in anybody as long as this case is pending. He does not. He cannot do that.
Now, are you doing all of this because your perceived favorite candidate did not win the election?
Not at all.
Or you're doing this as lawyers? I need
not
to understand.
At all.
We're doing this as citizens that are patriotic and want sanity in the body policy to be restored. We're doing it for children unborn. We're doing it to make those of us alive to be respecters of the law. And we're doing it to let people know that the Constitution is supreme, sovereign over and above every other law and every person. We are doing it as strong advocates and defender of the rule of law. That's our interest in this. We're not interested in if it were any of the other parties or candidates that had been declared winner without having fulfilled a precondition that would have made them be declared the winner, we would still go to court. It's not because we're APC or PDP or any of those. I am apolitical. I don't belong with any political party. I am concerned that the right thing be done. That is the purport of this suit.
It's quite unfortunate. We can't take calls in this regard this morning because we have other guests coming in. I would love to say a big thank you, Ohi Onigbe, Esquire, Jeffrey Uche. It's been an interesting conversation with you this morning. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing this thoughts with us.
Thank you for having us.
Our pleasure.
I hope that we can continue this conversation sometime soon.
Absolutely.
If possible, let's see that we can continue this conversation. So we have other Nigerians as well joining, to share their opinions and thoughts regarding this.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much
Thank
again.
you.
Keep it with us. We have more guests coming in on the show this morning. Something interesting.